This is Grapplers Talk.
What is up, fans of Grapplers Talk? This is Dave coming at you with another episode each and every week. Thank you to everyone for downloading and tuning into the podcast. It's truly an honor to bring you guys the best grappling content out there. And I just got to say, nothing but love to our great partners of the show, Butterfly X. And go check them out, BFX Gear, Instagram. They have some awesome rash guard kits and gi apparel and everything that you need for jiu-jitsu. So check them out. Use our promo code Grapplers Talk 10. You'll get 10% off. Also check out Spar Bar Soap. Go give them a follow on Instagram, like, subscribe to them, and you will get 10% off of your order for using promo code Grapplers Talk. And that's at Spar Bar Soap. Once again, thank you to everyone for tuning in, whether it be YouTube or Spotify or wherever you're listening. I'm excited this week. I got a message from somebody recently, and they were saying, "How come you never get 10th Planet guys on?" And I looked back and I was like, "I've had quite a few 10th Planet guys on." And anyways, but I'm always looking to expand the network and talk to everyone and hear everyone's story. And I tell a lot of people I'm a nerd when it comes to jujitsu, and I just love diving deep and hearing what people go through and the good and the bad. And I'm just excited this week to bring on a guest all the way from 10th Planet Oakland. Somebody that's really changing the game out there and doing the big thing. None other than Michael Hillebrand, man. How's it going? Welcome to Grapplers Talk.
Dude, thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on here.
Yeah, it's an honor to get to talk to you, man. And I always like to just dive right into it, and I like to hear the root story. What was the first training session like? Who brought you into the gym? Why'd you go into a jiu-jitsu gym in the first place?
Why'd I go in the first place? Honestly, I think that's kind of more like a little bit on my dad and my mom. So a lot of people don't know, but my dad was a judoka and my mom was actually a black belt in Kempo,
Oh
right?
wow,
So it's kind of like, but
yeah,
I didn't like
martial
grow
arts
up.
family.
It wasn't like a necessarily like a martial arts family in the sense, but like there was definitely that influence. And so like obviously my dad being a judoka, he always loved the grappling arts. And I remember being a little kid just riding with him in his truck, and he's like telling me this story of this like little Brazilian guy defeating these giants, and like these big boxers and everything, and none of them, they all fell before his feet, and I'm like a little kid just like sitting on the truck chair, and I'm like, this is amazing, and then you kind of fast forward. Let's see. I was in the fire academy or EMT school, I think. I was a firefighter for a little bit, and there was a guy named Mike John, and ironically, he's a black belt, and 10th Planet black belt down in Orange County, I believe, or Fullerton. It's one of those two down there. Uh, and it's funny, is like he wasn't a jiu-jitsu guy or anything like that, and he hits me up and he's like, "Hey, do you want to try like cage fighting stuff?" And like I was kind of just like, yeah, like I'm down, like I guess like let's do this. And it was in Ripon, California, and we trained inside of like a storage unit. And so like this is like the back of the days, like gyms weren't really gyms the way they are today,
Yeah,
And I don't know if you remember those, but there used to be these like blue fold out mats. Like they were
yeah.
just on concrete floor, and like you get thrown on those, they hurt so bad, like
Oh
you fucked
yeah.
up on those. But that's what the gym was. It was just those there. And the old lady that like ran the storage unit, you have to wait till she left because like no one knew that this was going on in there. And so we would see her drive away, and we were all parked along the corner, and then we just all start going in there, roll up the gates, and it's the Central Valley, like ripping up. For those that don't know, it gets hot. So like
Yeah,
no AC, metal building,
yeah.
and I just got hooked on it. You know what I mean? And from there, we were training under a guy named Pete, and he was a purple belt under Caesar, you know, and it was a great opportunity. And I think I got really hooked. I was driving like an hour every day because I was up by
Wow.
the Angels Camp kind of
Yeah.
area up there. And I would drive down there, and I got really hooked, and I kind of wanted to take it more serious. And that's when I found Oakdale MMA. And
Oh yeah.
they had like
Solid team over there.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so that was a cool thing is too, is like Professor Tom, he came from also a Kacha Kempo background. And then, he had Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and everything, and they had a really good MMA program.
Yeah.
Um, and I got into that, and that's when I feel like jiu-jitsu really like I started to see the potential. And that was really cool for me because it was also like going from like a storage unit to like a professional for that time, especially like one of the first world-class facilities. Like, they obviously had like UFC fighters that came up out of there and stuff like that. And that was really cool for me. I think a really cool journey is to go there. Tom also was really cool because he had a lot of traditional martial arts background and values that came from that. And I like that I got a little bit of that, a little taste for what it is to be a martial artist and kind of like, hold yourself to a higher standard, you
Right.
know? So I like that. Um, from there, um, I spent a little bit of time in Florida training too. I would train down there at a place called Black Trunks. It was a Gustavo Machado affiliate, and I would train down there, like kind of seasonal. My family had moved and retired to Florida, so I would train down there with those guys. And that was probably coolest because very different. Tom was like a very traditional martial artist with a lot of structure. And then Sean, he just kind of had like this surfer jujitsu vibe. It's kind of cool seeing like the
Yeah.
two different vibes. And I want to say that was another really interesting point for me because I feel like that's when I really fell in love with the sport, right? Like I really enjoyed it and loved what I was doing, but this is like I really felt like in love with the sport. Um, I don't think he ever locked the building. Like it was crazy. And like I
Just
could
open
train
all
that
the time.
dude, guys would just show up and train. Like you'd see guys that were like bouncing at night, and like they were like bouncers. And so they'd go in after work at like 3 in the morning and then they would just do like some rounds. And
Yeah.
then like there's like the 6 a.m. like office workers, they're coming in there and getting rounds then. And then like, dude, like there was like lunchtime, there's just like a barbecue in the back and we're just like barbecuing chicken wings and eating there. And like I just did not leave the mats. I was just there like all day, every day. Um, the next journey that I had is actually when I came to 10th Planet. And so I was in the Valley and I moved to San Francisco. And my instructor, Professor Tom, I really respected him and I said, "Hey, where should I go?" And he recommended Denny Prokopos's gym, which was 10th Planet San Francisco. And they're both Greek, right? Prokopos, Theophanopoulos,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
those long, long last names, you know. And he kind of told me, he's like, he's a young guy. Um, but it's going to be really good for you, especially because at that time, professional jiu-jitsu was not a thing. So like really my goal was MMA, right?
Yeah.
MMA was my main focus. And then Danny was a young kid, you know what I mean? And he was like my age, you know what I mean? And I was just like going from like a mature, structured to like wild 10th planet Denny, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, I don't know about this, you know? And man, it was a real blessing for me going in there because um Denny was kind of like ahead of his time and he was probably in my eyes like one of like the real first, how would I even describe it? It's just like he understood jujitsu on a completely different level. And I think that like he was always looking for new techniques and like it's like, all right, cool. There's like 20 different guillotines. What's the best? What grip? What focus? And like all these little minor details. And I was still like just like kind of like recreational at this point. Like I wanted to fight MMA, but I didn't know if I'd ever go to the UFC or anything like that. And I was just kind of like, firefighting's really what I do, you know? Um, and then I remember he kind of like goes to me one day and he's like, dude, you could be like a world champion. Like you're gonna be really good at jiu-jitsu. I was like, I mean, I'm good in the gym and I'm winning competitions, but I was like, world champion? Like, isn't there like kids in Brazil starting at like negative? They're like 1 years old and doing kimuras, you know?
Right,
And
right.
I'm like, I started at like 18 and 19 years old. And then he's like, no, you got it. And next thing you know it, I'm there and it's like 7 months later, we're at World Championships. I didn't win. I got silver and bronze at Blue Belt Worlds. And then I was like, maybe there's something there. Like maybe I'm
Yeah.
not that bad at this. And then I just kind of said, fuck it, I'm gonna live this jujitsu lifestyle. And so I didn't go back the next season to firefighting, and it's kind of was hard because I'd worked so hard to be a firefighter,
Right.
and like you have stability and stuff like that. And then I went to being like a broke gym rat, like dude, like living in like shoe boxes and
Yeah.
like living literally like on food stamps and like every job you could get to like I'd bounce and make like 60, $70 in a night, and I only did became a bouncer so that I could do more jujitsu because then I could train morning, lunch, dinner. After dinner, I mean, you're just after night training, you're going straight to bouncing all night, get off
Yeah.
2 in the morning, wake up 10 a.m. at the next 11 a.m. train morning sessions. You can do 3 a day, you know. So it was a wild lifestyle change, but that's really like kind of how my journey went until, I got good, did all right, and then I opened up my own academy, and now here we are today.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing to hear that journey, and I'm sure we've crossed paths at some point with you being a local guy. And I remember back in the day, we did a lot of MMA stuff, and Oakdale MMA was always around, and guys like Justin Smitley and Michael
Yep.
McDonald and all those guys were constantly on the circuit. So I definitely feel you. You came up the right way with some tough people and some good training. And obviously Denny Prokopos has one of the biggest interesting stories because, like you said, he was almost ahead of his time, and in the early days, like he was winning some major tournaments. And who knows, if he came up in a different time where he'd be, and I mean, he could be a superstar in this day and age, like with how advanced he was in his game. And I've heard nothing but crazy stories about how he's like an encyclopedia of jujitsu, and you can pick his brain and find out so much knowledge and so many details, like you were stating. And it's just incredible to be around, and some of those training partners. And 10th Planet has an amazing network of gyms and teams, and I know a lot of the 10th Planet people cross train at different ones, and I know there's good relationships going on. Talk to me about the networking that 10th Planet brings you, and talk to me about some of the highlights with that, and some of the things you have special going on with that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that's kind of like 10th Planet at its core is that like it was always trying to help jujitsu. It was always trying to further and advance jujitsu. And like that was also why Denny was such a good person to have at that time, is because he was an encyclopedia for jujitsu, but he was also seeking that knowledge. And so he opened up a lot of cross training, and that was something he actually encouraged a lot. And that at that time for jujitsu was just non-existent. It was just
Yeah.
very frowned upon, you know. So we did a lot of cross training with like Jake Shields. Jake Shields probably when I got purple belt became one of my main training partners for a long time. And so like, he was getting ready for his fights, and it was kind of like he had different gyms that he would say, "Hey, we're gonna meet up here." And then the cool thing was those were the ultimate rooms because you'd have like killers from, Half's or from like all kinds of other different gyms. And it
Right.
was like 4 or 5 different gym affiliates all training in one room. And I remember in the beginning, it was definitely like a weird silence in the room, but then everyone got to know each other. And that's kind of the beauty of jujitsu is that you realize like, dude, like all this like creonch talk and like tribalism, like we're all like the same type of person. Like if
Yeah.
you do jujitsu, we're probably cut from the same cloth. You know what I mean?
Right.
You just happen to go to whatever place was closest to you. And that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And dude, the cross training in there though, I think it really helped all of our styles. You know what I mean? And then we did a lot of cross training with Caio Terrero. Caio has been a huge part of our game. I trained a lot with the comp classes. I'd drive down to San Jose and train with all those guys. And that was cool for me too, is because like we're not known for like the points game or like understanding the rules like that. Like 10th Planet guys, we're just trying to submit you. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And so getting that style from him down there was super, super valuable. And a lot of us still cross train down there regularly, and it's
Yeah.
really cool to have those relationships. And I think it's important to have like your home team where you're working and developing yourself. But cross training, when done correctly, is super valuable as far as like getting different looks, being exposed to different styles. I think it's really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that we're blessed being from NorCal over here, and we have a short drive to world class, some of the best jujitsu in the nation, right? In the Bay Area, not just in 10th Planet, but in House and Caesars and all the different places, Coyoteras and there's just Dave Camarillo, and there's a number of different gyms around here that like it's just not a far drive, and you get some of the best training. And it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. But you touched on a couple of things. You were talking about kind of cross training and how it was back then. And I mean, you're absolutely correct. You got to open the doors and be able to share the knowledge with each other to expand on the knowledge, right? If you're keeping it inside your gym and maybe showing a little bit of it at competition, that really doesn't advance the sport. And I think that some of the advancement we've seen over the past few years is because of all the knowledge sharing and the instructional availabilities and the YouTube availabilities. And everyone seems to be eager to share. You look at like Half Gracie's open mat nowadays, and they have an open mat where just anybody can come. It doesn't matter what affiliate you're with, and I mean, there's hundreds of people there. So you could definitely see the shift, and I think it's just helped jujitsu grow and make it to what it is. Not it doesn't just advance your game, but it advances jujitsu as a whole and makes the competition better at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm a big fan of that. I always think like, you know, if you can advance jujitsu as a whole, you're just gonna everyone wins, you know?
Yeah,
Like the early days that I started, jiu-jitsu wasn't like a real sport. You know what I mean? Like half the people didn't even know what we were doing, you
yeah,
know? And then I remember when like BJJ Kumite came out from Lloyd Irvin, and then I was like, "Oh shit, like this is kind of getting like, a
yeah,
little bit more serious, you know?" And then EBI and Metamoris and everything came out and like putting money on the line.
yeah,
I was like, what? Like, this is becoming more and more professional. I remember having talks about that, and I'm like, guys, I think this is kind of like getting big, because it used to be this thing that people didn't know what the fuck Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was. Like, I'd tell people, like, oh, I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And they'd be like, don't you mean like Japanese Jiu-Jitsu? You know?
yeah,
And then, like, I was like, no, I do like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, And then you get all kinds of weird things, people will tell you like all the karate reference. Oh, my
right,
cousin's a karate guy or whatever. And
yeah,
it was weird. And then the even weirder part was like back then, I remember like people would be like, Brazil, where's that? What's that?
yeah,
I'll never forget this. This is actually a funny story. I remember asking Eddie because like, people would ask me, especially like friends and family members or whatever. And I was like, Eddie, I don't know how to answer this when people don't know what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is. I usually tell them like UFC stuff just because like some of them have seen that maybe on TV a little bit. And then a lot of people don't even know where the fuck Brazil is on a map. And he's like, man, I just tell them it's like a Mexican ground karate thing. And I remember him
yeah,
telling me that, and I thought it was the funniest shit that I like Eddie would just
yeah.
pop off with funny shit all
Oh
the time.
yeah,
Like 5 minutes with Eddie, you're laughing like half of it. And then it was crazy because then like I don't know, maybe 10 years, 12 years later, I see Craig's got Mexican ground karate and I
yeah,
was like, "Bro, I need that t-shirt because that's the funniest shit to me."
yeah,
So
yeah.
that
No,
reminded me of that.
it's pretty amazing. But yeah, you're right. You'd mentioned jujitsu back in the day, and people look at you funny, and now you even see it used in pop culture. You see all these celebrities and their family members are training, their wives are training, their kids are training. The Mario Lopez is out there, the Mark Zuckerbergs and all that different stuff is more and more common. So you see it nowadays a little bit more, but I want to hear a little bit about what it was like opening 10th Planet Oakland and kind of how that worked out for you. What was it like finding the space and getting the blessing from everyone and all the steps you had to go through to get that thing started?
Yeah, man, dude, that was a wild ride. Obviously, the first part was like I knew I always wanted to have a gym. I didn't think I'd actually be able to like do it for a living. Like I just assumed I'd have to go back to firefighting and like kind of stop playing around with these jujitsu dreams.
Yeah,
But I was like,
yeah,
I'm gonna do it as long as I can. I'll be, a broke gym rat bouncing at night. But then there came a point that I was just like, all right, like I'm gonna open up my own gym, and I knew I wanted to be in the Bay. Like I'm from the Bay, and I love the Bay. I know people like hating on the Bay, but bro, I think it's the best. We got the best food, the best weather. I think this is just where I call home for me,
Yeah.
you know. And my mom's from Oakland, and I lived in San Francisco, and obviously, 10th Planet San Francisco. I wanted to be able to still train with Denny regularly. And I was like, all right, well, it just makes sense. I'll just be on the other side of the bridge, and I'll live in the city so I can like train in the mornings with Denny, and then I can go in the evening and, build my own school up there. I didn't really have money, so like I put my whole life savings into it, and my whole life savings with my credit cards was literally enough for 1 month's rent and the mats, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
my dad helped me like my dad was a contractor, so my dad helped me build out the gym. But like I kind of I hope this shit doesn't ever bust me, but I kind of like fudged on the paperwork with like the landlord and just
Yeah.
like said that like, oh yeah, we got my money for like they want like I think like 12 months rent, that you have that. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, we got that. We got that. I'm like, dude, I have enough for 1 month. And
Yeah.
that was like my life's work, just to like put in perspective,
Right.
you know? And it was so crazy because I just got really blessed as day one. I think day one we had like 42, 43 students. Day one signed up.
Wow.
And I was just like, whoa, like I got really, really lucky there, and we had a lot of really good momentum going. And dude, we were over like 100 something students within the first year, and we were winning our first world champion, Eric Chow. He won Purple Belt Worlds that year. Everything was going phenomenal until the big damper for everybody was COVID.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
COVID hit, because we opened 2019, and COVID hit, dude, that was hard because um keeping the doors open was almost impossible. Like I went down, luckily we had probably maybe like 19 students that were like working remote, and we did like virtual Zoom jiu-jitsu where I would teach in my living room, because we were like locked down in the Bay. And I know for people in Texas and Florida that's hard to understand, but we were like
Yeah. Yeah.
locked
Yeah.
down, locked
California
down.
was insane. Yeah.
And so luckily they helped in, and I was able to put a lot of the credit cards and stuff, and my landlord was cool, he worked with me a lot. And but I wrote out a letter almost we basically weren't going to make it. It was like 4 times that I had to like write out a letter and say like RIP, like this was the end of 10th Planet Oakland. Like my life's work's done and I got maxed out credit cards, but it is what it is. And luckily, as soon as we could open again, I think everybody was really ready to take back jiu-jitsu. And yeah, we made it. And we actually ended up going to a bigger location. We outgrew the old spot like really quickly. And yeah, the gym's just fucking killing it right now. We're doing
Yeah.
great. We got a real lot of really good up and comers now. And I think that's kind of like people ask me all the time because, like, I think we're a pretty successful team, from a business perspective. But I think the answer was really for me is like what worked. It wasn't some crazy marketing plan, wasn't some business strategy. I took like all those classes and videos and that everybody does, and I actually don't like them. I hate all the business tips that they give, just because like I feel like a lot of them feel kind of like scammy, kind of
Yeah.
like. And I'm like, dude, you got a number one thing. If you're gonna have a successful team, the number one thing is protect your gym's culture.
Yeah.
And
All
our gym
about
culture is
culture.
really straightforward. Like we call ourselves the Savages. We're just trying to go out there and just win as much as possible, try to produce the top level jiu-jitsu. And that was what my ambitions were, as a competitor. And I think just like people that also shared the same dream of me as like people that want to, just have world-class jiu-jitsu and try to win. They were like, cool, I'm gonna go with this guy. This guy's doing that. We're making it happen. They got the formula that's working. We're gonna keep going on that. So I always tell people, like, people ask me like, how do you do it? I'm like, figure out what your gym culture is, because it doesn't have to be mine.
Right.
That's just what
It's
mine is,
different. Yeah.
you know, and just stay true to that. Remember that it's a family, it's not a business. So fuck all the marketing scammy, you know, charge what do they do every 4 weeks so they get an extra month of payment at the end of the year
Yeah.
and all that other crap. Like fuck all that. Take care of your dudes, take care of your team and protect your gym's culture.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's important. Culture's everything in business, in gyms and in life, protecting that culture and making sure that you're putting out the product that you want and you have the environment you want to train in, because nothing's worse than showing up somewhere you're not happy or somewhere you're miserable and you hate, and then all of a sudden something you love becomes a burden to you, and that's not what it's about. It's
Dude,
about
I tell people all the time, there's guys that come in and like they'll tell me like certain things that what they're looking for, and I'm like, hey, this might not be it for you. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, yo, check out Half Berkeley. They're right down the road.
right, right,
Check out, like Island Jiu-Jitsu in Alameda here. They're killers, like people have different goals. It could be more gi, they love more passion, more MMA. But I'm like, yo, but if you like no gi jiu-jitsu, like we're the spot for that. You know what I mean? So like making sure that I tell everybody jiu-jitsu's so big now that like you're gonna get a good team, do a little bit of homework, do a couple trial classes, and whatever feels like home to you, that's the spot that you should probably be at. And if it doesn't feel like that, keep fucking looking. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because like once you're at a
absolutely.
spot, it's really hard to like then up and leave and go to a new spot. That's hard to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, you make friends, you make relationships, and obviously you see those people around the circuit still. It makes it weird. So find the gym
Yeah.
you're comfortable with. I like that advice. What do you feel like it is about 10th Planet that keeps you in the system? Like what draws you to 10th Planet the most?
For me personally, um, I mean, obviously I've been in it for so long. Well, you know what's funny is actually I didn't want to be part of 10th Planet.
Yeah. How come?
I I did not want to be part of
Yeah.
the planet at the time. When I actually got in, and I've told Eddie this story, it's kind of funny, is you know, when I was in like high school and stuff, I maybe had a little bit of a rougher patch of life, you know, um, hanging out with scenes I probably shouldn't have been in, you know what I mean? And I did some stuff and basically it made me resent anything with that culture, right? Especially when I got, done with my probation and stuff like that. And I got into firefighting. I started resenting anything with like weed, drugs, I really liked, trying to lead a good life and a good path,
Right.
When you come from that, you kind of start to maybe hate that a little bit, and that was kind of a little like phase I went through. And online, you just see Eddie and like back then this prior to Reddit and all that is like just YouTube comments and you just see that he's like a bad influence and then he's like got bullshit jujitsu, he's just a flexible stoner and I was like I don't want to be a part of that. Like I came from Professor Tom who is a great upstanding citizen and like a great example of what a martial artist should be, so I don't want to go from that to this. And the same thing, Denny, he was a very extravagant character, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Denny made me fall in love with it with his pure love for the sport and his just encyclopedia of knowledge. I had never experienced anyone with that much jujitsu knowledge. Um, Really earned my respect of just understanding like how professional jujitsu can be. And then Eddie really, when I finally got to meet Eddie and like I was like, wow, I feel like a piece of shit because all these stereotypes that people had on Eddie were just completely wrong. Like he's the nicest, most genuine human you'll ever meet. Like he's obviously a great time. Like he's really
Yeah.
funny and everything like that.
Yeah.
But like he's probably one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Like I remember like one of the first time, actually it was the first time I met him. I ended up going to his house. We're having dinner and we were competing at like Gracie Worlds or something like that in LA, and I had forgot my rash guard up in San Francisco. And so I was like, "Hey, is there a possibility I can buy a rash guard?" And he was like, "Oh, wait, no, I got a better idea." He's like, "You're German, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." And then he's like, takes me up in his room, goes in his closet. He had like a 10th Planet Hamburg rash guard. It's like his rash guard. He's just like, "I gotta take this. Don't worry about it." I'm like, "Here, do you need money?" No, 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 no. Don't worry about it. It's all good. You know what I mean? And just like that's just like a very, very small example, but it was just
Yeah.
nothing of just like my entire like relationship with Eddie is just him just constantly just giving and never asking for anything in return and just genuinely being such a good human being for me that I was like, all right, he earned my loyalty. It's kind of crazy. Like he never asked for it. It's not like my loyalty was something that he needed or anything. It's just that he was just such a good person. And so for me, I've just always been loyal to Eddie. And honestly, the vision of 10th Planet has always just been to constantly evolve, and constantly seek out what is the best jujitsu. And a lot of people forget this, but like in the early days of jujitsu, a lot of gyms were just very like, today we do armbar, tomorrow we do kimura. And Eddie was like, I think there should be systems. And I love this. Like the German in me was like, oh shit, this dude's putting like systems together. I
Yeah.
like structure. I like systems. I don't like this like
Curriculum.
surfer Brazilian, today we do this because I feel like it, you know? And then like, yeah, Eddie's names were a little funny, calling things rubber guard, he's calling New York, Kung Fu move, and you're like, what the fuck? But they all had a meaning, and I really liked the idea that he would call shit out and just be like, boom, that tells me he's like, all right, I need you to go to New York. All right, boom, I knew exactly what I needed to go to, and then it was really that back into the evolving of jiu-jitsu from this like skating, surfing, casual sport to like let's be professional, let's build systems, let's try to find out all the best techniques and find out, what we should cut out the fat. Like Eddie doesn't have a problem. If you ask Eddie about his original book and you say like most people would stand by every single thing. Like I wrote it and that the word of God. That's
Right,
how it
right.
is. Eddie's like, nah, bro, I fucked that shit. We're doing this now. Like we're doing
Yeah.
this. And like he has no problem saying, oh, I fucked up on that, or it could have been better, or here's this, and I think all these things is just things that kind of worked for me. And so maybe I wasn't the stoner character of jujitsu of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, but I really loved all the values and all the great people. And another thing that I really like about 10th Planet is that like a lot of associations, it's really just like unsincere just business.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to be part of X association? Pay me this monthly due, and then you could be a part of it. You know what I mean? Oh, you want to
Yeah.
be a part of it? Just pay me money. And like, dude, people throw so much money at Eddie, and it means jack shit to Eddie because Eddie said, dude, I'd lose 100 schools, and I'd still be happy as long as I got like 10 real motherfuckers. I'm happy. And so the Eddie's a very firm believer. If you want to have a 10th Planet gym, you have to be a 10th Planet black belt,
Yeah.
and I love that too because all the dudes in our system, we all know each other. We all came up together. There's a lot of love for each other. And you feel like you're really part of a real family. And that's kind of where I say protect the culture is like you want to be a part of something that's real. Like my guys move and they're like, oh, hey, coach, I might be moving to San Diego. I'm like, all right, cool. Tell Boogie I say what's up. Or I'll call Boogie and I'll be like, hey, Boogie, one of my guys is coming down to you. He's good at this. He needs to work on this. Let me know how it goes with him, or it doesn't matter. You go to Austin, I'll call Curtis or Ben Eddie up and I'll just be like, yo, and they'll do the same thing. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of a cool thing where even if you move, you're still part of this, like, it's not just a global enterprise, but it's like a real family. It could be
Yeah.
anywhere, you
That's
know.
that's the thing I've always noticed about the 10th Planet schools and the different guys associated with 10th Planet is they're all very close and you don't hear crazy amounts of that infighting or anything like that. I mean, and it seems like everyone's got a pretty loving relationship with each other and I mean, I hear great things about the 10P Nor how does Chris Vickers say it? He calls Denny the 10P NorCal God
Oh, well,
in this area. So,
Danny's the one who started all this. Without Danny,
yeah,
it wouldn't be possible.
yeah. And, Denny is obviously spreading out his knowledge to all of the different areas. And, it's great to see that jujitsu and 10th Planet Jujitsu is still continuing to evolve because I remember when I first got started, there was a couple books flying around the dojo. And I remember Tim Freeman was one of the guys, and a couple other guys. They were talking about mastering the rubber guard, and I was like, "What are they talking about here?" And I remember seeing the black book with the blue cover, and I was like, "Okay, and they were all like purple belts and stuff." And I'm like, "If they're studying this shit, there's got to be something behind it." And I remember I got a few grappling magazines where they highlighted key factors in the books, and showed little segments and stuff like that. But yeah, it's always been a pretty awesome system. Obviously, it's a proven system too with Master Eddie and Hoyler Gracie matches, and that we've seen over the years. And he still is tried and true to his system. And you've seen it work in competition. You've seen other people use it, and I mean, it's just evolved and evolved from there. And it's great to see over the years. And obviously, I know that some people are different with how they're structured, and having a curriculum, having a structure is how some people are designed. And so it can be beneficial. That old school way of doing things isn't always the right way. It was just the way.
Yeah, yeah, it was just the way things were done, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's such a different time for jiu-jitsu now with like BJJ Fanatics, YouTube, all this stuff. Like I remember having the first Mastering the System book, or like I think the other book that I had was it Drill to Win, Andre Galval's book,
Yeah.
you know? Like that's how you got jiu-jitsu knowledge,
Yeah.
you know? Or you had to go to the tournaments, but there was no flow grappling, nothing like
No.
this, you know? So it was such a different time to see like how do you get the knowledge? Who has the knowledge? And it's like, just because you're learning the knowledge, it's like, is that the best way? It's like, how many different triangle setups are there, or ways to finish it, details, all this stuff. It's like, how do you know which one's proven? You need data, you need
Yeah.
as much data as possible, you know?
100%.
That we're in a totally different world today,
Yeah.
completely.
I mean, shit, we could have AI download everything we're talking about, break it all down for us, and tell us which one's the most effective.
I have a love-hate relationship with AI, bro. Like, it's a little bit of both where I love it. It helps me out with so much shit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it scares the fuck out of me,
Oh,
bro. Like, it's
man.
terrifying. I'm like, I don't know, dude.
Yeah,
Love, hate.
I want to use it, but should I be using it? I don't know. It's hard, man. We're in a wild time.
It helps me with all kinds of things. Like, obviously, it helps me like writing shit out and stuff like that. I'm super illiterate. I can't write worth a fuck, you know? So for me, it's like nice to help that. But at the same time, I like it asking for like legal advice and like health advice. I actually like it for both those. Like I had this stomach issue for a long time, and I'd get like super acidic and stuff like that, and like just nauseous all the time. Really came actually out of bad staph infection. Just like
Oh
wiped
wow.
my gut out. I ended up getting MRSA, and they put me on like, I don't know, fucking 7 different antibiotics. And I do 10 years of me like dealing with this nauseous, all these bad symptoms. I've been to 12 different doctors, three specialists, right? I went and did the endoscopy. They put you to sleep with the camera down your throat and stuff like that. And they all had this thing. And then actually recently I went to AI and I was just like, what do you think's the solution? Like, how the fuck do I fix this? Because I'm just nauseous and throwing up all the time. Like, how do I fix this? And it's crazy because it told me to take a couple tests. I took the test results and just put it straight into AI. And it was like, oh yeah, yeah, the doctors are completely diagnosing you wrong, and it's for X, Y, and Z. Try this. It gave me like a series of things to take. I'm like 3 weeks into it, and I'm like, dude, this is like life changing. Like I
Yeah.
haven't felt any of my symptoms. I was on prescriptions for like 8 years. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like twice a day. And I'm like, I'm not on any of it now. And I feel better than I felt in years. So I hope if it's only 3 weeks in, so who knows? Maybe I
Yeah.
have another flare up in a month or two, and I'll look back at this podcast like that was retarded. Don't do AI. But it was crazy because like just seeing what the doctors thought it was, and then how AI is able to say no, it's wrong for this, this, and this reason. You know what I mean? I'm like,
It can kind of
damn.
it kind of removes that human error to an extent, right? That human where we take in, thoughts of this or that, and it kind of just analyzes the data straight up as it is, and based on what you're telling it specifically. So yeah, I mean, you hear Bo Nickel, he's using it for fight advice and things like that, asking it what to do in a fight. And I mean, it's wild what it can do for you. I mean, used correctly, I think it's very beneficial. But there's so many people that who knows what they're adding to this adding to this formula to make it wild and crazy. But it's very possible to turn it wild, I'm sure.
I mean, if Max Holloway can use the UFC video game to make him a better fighter, I mean, why not use AI? Like that's the next level. We went from like Barnes and Noble's books to like YouTube BJJ fanatics to UFC video games to now AI,
Now AI. Yeah. I got a couple fun questions for you. Obviously, I usually ask people gi or no gi, and that's an obvious answer for us. But I want to know, okay, if you could build your team of a quintet and any grapplers go in this quintet of five people, who would you build? Who would you put on the team?
Hmm. Any grapplers from any era, any weight,
Any weight,
is just five people. So these are
five
basically just
people.
who I think the top five are,
Your
right?
top five of
This
all
is
time.
my top five of all time. I mean, proven, Gordon, obviously. I think for Nogi especially, he's just numbers don't lie. You know what I mean? Some people love him or hate him. I have nothing but good relationship with him. Every time I've dealt with him, he's been great. I think he kind of gives what he gives back, so hate him or love him, he's the fucking best. That's just how it is. So he has to be on there. Um, I love Marcelo. Marcelo Garcia for me. I think he's one of the greatest. So I'd say I put those two on there. Um, you can't deny Hodger as one of the greatest. Put
Yeah, that's a
Hodger
good
on the
one.
team. Hodger, obviously he did a lot in the gi, but dude, I mean, seeing him come back and still beating Bushesh out of
Yeah.
retirement, like that dude showed that he can go through all the different eras, you know.
Yeah.
So you go with those three. Hmm, who would have 4 and 5 gets hard. 4 and 5 gets really hard to think about.
I'm surprised we have no 10th Planet guys yet.
Yeah, I mean, like if we're thinking for a competition team right now, I think we have a lot of guys, like obviously PJ's phenomenal and stuff like that. I think we have some awesome, awesome talent like that I would want to do. But if we're thinking of like the greatest, you know, like we don't have anybody on Hodger's level, just being
Yeah.
real. We don't have a Gordon level character. You know what I mean? Um, those are just like the 0.0001%, trying to think who else I would put on there on that level. If you're gonna put a small guy on there, I'm biased because Kaio is a friend and a trading partner, but that dude is probably one of the most talented people I've ever
Yeah.
talked to or rolled to with. And 12-time black belt world champion. I don't know too many people that have that title on there. So let's go with number five. Mm, dude, number five is hard. Who do you give
Yeah.
number five to?
I mean, there's always the $1 million grappler. I don't think you mentioned him yet.
I
Either
think
one of
Nicky,
the $1 million
I think Nicky
grapplers.
Rod's great, he's really good at like what I love about Nicky Rod is so like there's different grapplers that are good for different reasons, right? And sometimes at the highest level, it's a question of who can make who play whose game, right? So if you're really good at one thing and I'm really good at one thing, if I force you to play what I'm at best at and not what you're best at,
Right.
I'm gonna win,
Right.
right? And that's what Nicky Rod does better than anybody, right? He's really good at forcing people into the body lock, right?
Yeah.
He could take down guys that are much better wrestlers than him, you know. Um, we're starting to see him play a little bit of guard, but it's like that's kind of his thing is like you can't take him down. You pull guard, he's gonna get the body lock, and he has good back control. Like I would say
Yeah.
those are like the main categories. But in the top five in the same category as like the legends, I don't know if he can be there. He can become
Yeah.
there, but I don't know if he's necessarily in my book. I don't know if he's there yet. Fuck, bro, I'm having a hard time with the fifth one. Just because I'm a jujitsu nerd, I want to make sure it's a solid answer, and I know I'm gonna look back if I just say a name. Let's stick with
That's
four for right now, because otherwise
that.
I'm gonna look
Hey,
back and regret
those
the name that I said.
four are probably the best answers I've heard so far. That team would be one of the most difficult to take out of anybody. Who are you going to put up against that team, right? Like, I mean, not many people can hang with that, but I do in closing, I do just want to touch on this. There's been a lot of things going on in the jujitsu community, and a lot of allegations and things coming out, and stuff being inappropriately done, and all of this different stuff being said. I've been hearing tons of people in the jiu-jitsu community say, why is nobody talking about this? As a head instructor of an academy, what do you have to say about some of this stuff going on with some of these top level or top names in the jiu-jitsu community?
I mean, first and foremost, man, I find it so sad, because like, especially like if you hear some of these big names, it's like they are representatives of our sport. And it's a shame that we have those kind of people in our sport. You know what I mean? And I wish it wasn't like that, but it just keeps happening. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Um, and so I just can focus on like me and my team and what we do. And and I think that's kind of the thing is like when you become the head coach, you're the guy in charge. You know what I mean? And I think that's a big responsibility because it's really easy to kind of get drunk with power. I see that with a lot of gyms where guys just kind of become pieces of shit. You know what I mean? Like you you kind of get your ego inflated. You know what I mean? So being at the top, it's really important that you keep yourself humble, you keep yourself connected, and you make sure that you lead the team correctly. So all my guys know, like I don't play any of that shit. I had to sit down with all my coaches and they know I have zero tolerance. So you could be with me for 10 years and like if you're one of my coaches and you start messing around, you're out. You're done. Like you could be 10 years with me. That's the one thing I'm just not going to put up with. And I even had that talk with like some of my female coaches. Like they were like, "What? Are you really having this conversation with me?" I'm like, "Yeah. Like you're not voided out from this. Students
yeah,
off limits. Like make sure you have the right culture. We're here. I always same thing. I tell my guys also even on other things like no politics, no religion. I want all walks of life. I don't care about any of that stuff. I just want people to be able to have a good time, do jujitsu, become good people, do good society outside of the gym. And yeah, just train jujitsu, man. Have fun.
yeah. That's what it's about. I look at jujitsu and being in the gym is like a sacred, holy place. And it's my church, it's my religion. I train under jujitsu. And
Yeah.
so like hearing these things going on in the gyms, and it's hard for me to really wrap my head around. But I think that as a whole, we need to talk about these things, bring them to light, so it quits going down. We don't want this stuff to continue to happen for these next generations. We don't want the story of jujitsu to be tainted by all of these horrific things happening. So
Yeah, I mean,
um
I think that's an interesting thing is like it tarnishes our story. You know what
right.
I mean? Like,
Right.
why did jiu-jitsu blow up so quickly and as big as it did? And it's because it was really good at what it did as far as effective martial arts, proven the most effective martial art. But it changed people's lives. It changed my life. It changed so many people's life for the better. And I would hate for these people to tarnish all of that. You know what I mean? And
Right.
the most recent allegation, if I'm being honest, I really hope it's not true. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Me
I
too.
know right now everybody is like grabbing their pitchforks and everything.
Right.
And like, don't get me wrong, this shit comes out and it's real. And like, we know that it's real. Like, not just like a Reddit post because like
Right.
right now it's kind of like a Reddit post and everyone just
Yeah.
like got the pitchforks. I'm glad people are ready to,
Hmm.
but like,
Wait till the information's
I
done.
don't want to
Yeah.
like have like a stance on it until that I know that it's real. I don't want to ruin
Right.
a guy, if this is just something negative, but it's not
Yeah.
looking good. But
Yeah.
it's the same thing as this is like, I remember there was a really unfortunate situation that happened in Florida and I actually knew the guy for a long time and I knew the victim too. I would see them, when I would go visit down there. I didn't know him, but I'd visit there. And I remember when I heard that, dude, it broke my heart so bad, and I didn't want to believe it. And then, when it came out to be true, I was just like, I don't even know, dude. I really felt like so much pain in my heart for the person. And I will say that I was really proud of the jiu-jitsu community for condemning them really hard. And I
Right.
think that that is an important thing is that like make sure that the person deserves to be condemned, But once the facts are out, they can burn in hell and fuck off forever. That's just how I
Yeah.
look at it.
Right, right. Yeah, but it is important that, everyone gets their fair share, right? And making sure the facts do come out. And again, no one knows all the facts in this situation or any situation yet, but time will tell. We'll see what happens. But I
We
think
can
as a
hope.
community, we gotta make sure that we're on top of this kind of stuff and bringing it to light and making sure that it's a safe place for everyone. Jujitsu
Making
is,
that I think that's the number one thing is just make it known that we have zero tolerance for this as a community, you
yeah,
know? Like if someone does this shit, bro, we want to make sure we don't fucking play with it. There's too many fucking weirdos in this sport that kind of
yeah.
got away with shit for a long time. And I think jiu-jitsu's heading in the right direction where we can just say, yeah, we ain't playing that shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how it should be. Michael, it's been great getting to talk to you. I just got to say, man, you're an awesome person, and I wish you nothing but success in the future. I always like to give our guests just a couple minutes for any shout outs, any sort of love towards any training partners, anything that they want to say, but just take a couple minutes. The floor is yours.
Nah, I appreciate you having me on, man. I love being able to talk about jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? It's obviously what I've dedicated my life to. I love the sport. So, um, yeah, if anyone ever wants to reach out to me, everyone will ever come by the gym. I always love getting people in from other gyms. We're not super tribal. You know what I mean? Like come in, come train, come drop in. You're visiting, you're in Oakland, come through. And yeah, man, everyone else just keep enjoying the jiu-jitsu journey.
Yeah. Uh, Again, it's been awesome talking to you. Thank you again for being a part of this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, tune in, follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, all that fun stuff. But we appreciate the fans for downloading and tuning into the podcast. Don't forget to check out our partners and sponsors of the show. Use our promo codes for any discounts, any of that good stuff. But this has been another great episode of Grapplers Talk. This is Dave, and we are out.
This is Grapplers Talk.